Hello everyone, this is Zud. Today we are kicking off a brand new topic, risk control. We've talked before about how risk control is a core of safety management. It's the most important part. And in this series, we learned how to identify hazards, assess risks, and how to develop and implement control measures. All right, let's start with some basics. What is a hazard? So the definition of a hazard originally came from Occupational Health and Safety Management System. In the old standard, which is OSAS 18001, a hazard was defined as a source, situation, or act with a potential for harm in terms of human injury or ill health, or a combination of these. While in the updated version, which is ISO 45001, the definition is simplified to a source with a potential to cause injury and ill health. So instead of listing three forms, source, situation, or act, the new standard groups them all under a source. So I think this change is meant to make the hazard identification easier. So anything that can directly cause harm, it is hazard. So there's no need to overclassify them. And the new standard, the ISO 45001, also outlines several categories of hazards, such as physical, chemical, biological, psychosocial, mechanical, electrical, all based on movement and energy. And of course, they are not limited to these. I found some similar but confusing terms while going through all these regulations and standards. Terms like hazardous factor, risk source, and dangerous and harmful factor. So I feel like these terms are China specific. They are only used in China. So let's take a closer look at them. The first term is hazardous factor. There is an explanation in GBT 45001. This is a Chinese version of ISO 45001. So it says in the second note that a hazard and hazardous factor are considered equivalent. But in practice, we only use hazardous factor when we are talking about occupational hazards, right? Things like noise or dust. So a hazardous factor is essentially same as hazard. It's just that it's only used when we're talking about occupational hazards. The second term is called risk source. This term appears in a Jiangsu provincial standard called Basic Specification for Safety Risk Management and Control of Industry and Trade Enterprises. Let's take a look at its definition here. It actually puts an English name beside it, and it clearly says hazard, but the Chinese wording doesn't match. And from the definition, we can see it is same as the one in the old Occupational Health and Safety Management System. So it has three forms: source, situation, or act, or the combination of them. So based on the definitions, a risk source is a hazard. It's very clear, but there's a note underneath which really throws me off. It says in some cases, risk source can also be called dangerous and harmful factors, and they are grouped into personal factor, material factor, environmental factor, and management factor. So this sounds more like accident potential to me. We know that accident potential has a very clear definition here in this regulation. So it is the accident potential is unsafe situation, which is material factor, and unsafe behavior, which is personal factor, and management failure, which could lead to accident when the employers violate all those rules. So basically, these provincial standards seems to be saying that a risk source is a hazard and at the same time is also an accident potential, which is really confusing because we know that a hazard and accident potential, they are different, right? Let's take a moment to look at the difference between a hazard and an accident potential. Just to clarify that I couldn't find an English equivalent for the Chinese term in Huan. I mean, they have the same concept like unsafe conditions or unsafe behavior management failure. These are all in Huan, but there's no single word that can describe all of them. So we'll refer in Huan as accident potential for the sake of our discussion. And here's a diagram from the latest edition of GBT 3000 2025, requirements of work safety management system for large and medium-sized enterprises. So it outlines a framework of risk control, and we can see the distinctions. Hazard is a source that directly leads to an accident, and we need to apply control measures to the source. If though which is the control measure is here the first protective barrier. If those measures work properly, the accident won't happen. But if a measure fails, those holes will appear, and so does the accident potential. So basically, accident potentials are those failed control measures. And personally, I think there's only one barrier instead of two between hazard and accident. The only one is the control measures. And the accident potential are those holes in the barrier. And what we need to do is to identify those holes and fix them before an accident occurs. Okay, let's go back to the last term, which is a dangerous and harmful factor. And in that Jiangsu provincial standard, it says that the risk source is a dangerous and harmful factor. So what exactly does this term mean? In GBT 13861 is a definition. It says that hazardous and harmful factors are those things that can cause injury, affect health, or even lead to diseases. And they are grouped into four categories: personal, material, environment, and management factors. So that sounds closer to the concept of accident potential. When I look at the examples in the standard, I got confused again. For example, under material factors, it includes defects in equipment, facility, tools, or attachments, or the failed missing safety guards. So these are unsafe conditions, right? They are accident potentials. But let's look at the right side of the table. It also lists something like electrical sparks, arcs, noise, and vibration. So these are definitely hazards. They are they are directly source of harm. So basically, in these standards, the dangerous and harmful factors they include both accident potentials and hazards without clearly separating them. So this can be quite confusing. Anyway, I don't think we need to get too tangled up in all those terms because hazard has a very clear definition, and it's not only used in ISO 45000 standard, but also it is used in work safety law and also throughout the latest version of Chinese work safety management system. And hazardous factors are mainly used when we are talking about occupational hazards. The other terms like risk sources or dangerous and harmful factors. They're not commonly used in standard practice, and I think they're more likely to cause confusion. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.